Tom, thanks for coming on the pod.
Jack, thanks for having me. Cool to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting.
We met at the Fitness Expo.
Yes, we did. You jumped on and you asked me a question. I was probably thinking about that question for the rest of the week going, what was I saying?
Yeah. Well, what is fitness?
What is fitness? I think it's a great question. Is that where you want to start? Or?
Yeah.
I don't even remember what I said at the expo, but I think I sort of went around the general guidelines. There's lots of different aspects to it. But I think what is fitness is a really important question with any client, especially because there's different aspects to it. And we call them the components of fitness if we're talking about education, but there's like muscular strength, there's muscular size or body composition. You could talk about muscular endurance, cardiovascular endurance, then things like balance, proprioception, coordination, agility, power. All these things come under the banner of fitness. So if you ask me what is fitness, it's sort of a combination of those things. But I think the important thing about fitness is that everyone's going to have different ideas of it and different goals. So you might look at a marathon runner and they'll go, well, that's really fit. But then you look at a strongman and go, well, they're not fit. But in reality, they're both fit, just at different ends of the spectrum, I think.
Yeah. It was I actually enjoyed walking around and asking different people that question because you do get so many different answers. And what I walked away with is sort of found that fitness is not, it's almost like a living thing.
Yeah, yep.
And it's just whatever people need it to be, it is that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's so powerful. Like you can really use fitness to achieve anything. And it's always there for you and you can always use it.
Yep.
So it's not really one thing or the other. It's just whatever you need it to be in that situation.
Did you find people gave you similar answers around the expo or?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then like the follow-up question was, how do I get people excited about fitness?
Yep.
So how do I get people excited?
And that's a good question. I've always found goals are really powerful in terms of getting people excited. So it depends on the client's background and why they might come to you or why people are trying to get into fitness. If it's for, I'm going to join a fun run or my friends are getting into fitness, having some goal oriented with that. But if it's a client who's sort of just been told by the GP, you need to get fitter, otherwise your health is going to decline. Setting them up with some sort of goal, I think, is really important to get them motivated and excited about fitness. And from that, I don't think it takes long for people to get excited because once they start seeing improvements, I think they just go, oh, I want more.
We'll dive back into that in a minute, but how did you get into fitness?
I always loved sport growing up. So I guess my journey to fitness was I just love being active in sport. I never really thought about fitness as sort of a career or a real interest until after high school when I was like, oh, well, I like sport. And I guess my passion started in trying to get better at sport. So originally I was like, I'll do exercise science, like everyone really interested in athletes and athlete development, and strength and conditioning was a passion. So I was like, I want to be good, but how can I make myself better? So that was sort of how I got into fitness, and my interest was like, okay, if I'm this fast or this strong, how do I get stronger? And that's probably what got me into fitness. And then, from there it was education, and ability to work in different streams of fitness was really cool.
What was your sport back in the day?
A lot of AFL and tennis was sort of my main two.
Yeah,
tennis. I still play tennis today, so I enjoy getting out and having hits. And I think sport's a fundamental thing that I think is a great habit for people to get into. So we talk about fitness and exercise, and I obviously love the gym, and you'll probably similarly enjoy training in the gym. But I 100% understand people who don't enjoy the gym, or they find it boring, or they don't want to go for a run, or they don't find these things as interesting. I think it's still important to build the habits and be able to do it. But if people can go, oh, I enjoy sport, and it's actually a way to keep fit without sort of the idea of training, it's a cool little tool. So, that's sort of, I think sport's really important.
100%. So did you find that the education did help you with the sport, or you just enjoyed the education more?
Absolutely. So like throughout uni, I was really, I love studying and finding more about exercise science and physiology and all that sort of stuff, and how to make someone better and why people get better based on the stimulus. And then I was lucky enough to be able to apply that as a strength and conditioning coach for a range of different athletes at certain times. But after uni, I also did a 6 to 8 month stint as a PT in sort of a private studio, and you get you get access to a range of different people that way, and I think that really opened my eyes up into, well, that's actually a fun space as well. It's not all about athlete development. And eventually, I still love working with athletes and getting them better, but at some point it's actually more interesting working with general population too, because you get a lot more variety. Athletes are generally, they get to a point, and I've done a lot of sort of juniors and teenage level athletes who are fun to work with because they're still developing and learning skills. But once you get to sort of the higher end athletes and they've got a good training age, there's not a lot of, they need programs and gym, but it's like you tell them to do the work and they know how to do it. Whereas you get a lot more fulfillment, I think, out of general population as well, coaching them, teaching them techniques, and they see a lot more improvements than athletes. So I might go from squatting an extra 10 kilos, but general population will squat an extra 50 kilos, which is really cool.
100%.
Yeah.
So you've got out of uni?
Yep.
You did the PT sort of stuff?
Did a bit of PT stuff, and that was sort of while I was doing S&C. I did a master's in high performance sport. So my idea was to get to sport. But there's not a lot of jobs in sport, and things change. And I was lucky enough to get a role at like a training organisation that did a diploma of sport development. And that was in like an athlete based program. So we had basketball, AFL, we had netball and golf programs. So the students would be sort of doing training for their sport while they did teaching for their diploma of sport development. So they sort of come out, it's good for different ranges of students.
Yeah.
So that was a great opportunity. I was the S&C coach, but also they helped me get my certificate of training assessment and get into more of the education space, and sort of do their lectures in nutrition and S&C and all that sort of stuff. So that was my first experience into education and teaching, and really, really loved it. It's sort of, you get to, all this stuff I'd learned, I got to pass it on, and not necessarily just as them getting better at fitness, but building people's knowledge.
Yeah, that's epic. You can change a lot of people's lives by teaching a lot of different people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now it's like I get to tell all these other people my knowledge and teach them, and they can go out and spread the fun, inspirational words about fitness and how to do it.
That's awesome. So what are you doing now?
So currently right now I work for the Australian Fitness Academy, where I've been for about 6 years, which is a registered training organisation that run the Certificate 3 and 4 in fitness. I started there as like a student support officer, so helping out all online students, any questions they have related to course content, assessments, all that sort of stuff, while teaching some face-to-face classes. And then probably a year or two ago, I flipped into the course development team. So now I'm sort of in charge of maintaining, updating all the course content, course resources, creating new sort of short courses and things like that. And that's also a fun little space. Learn on new skills, obviously, in course development, content creation. Yeah. But lots of fun.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love it.
It's a big journey. It's sort of, you never sort of see where your path is going to go, but I've always sort of liked learning, and I think lifelong learning is something that I envisage, and I think it's a great thing to be doing. So I get to keep learning new stuff to keep teaching people, but also passing on my knowledge is really good. Yeah,
I agree. Learning is very important, and it's a good thing to just keep learning. And you can never stop learning, I don't think.
No.
Once you feel like you know something, somebody else comes along and says something, you're like, oh yeah, didn't even think of it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but I guess there are a lot of people listening to this who are obviously in their fitness, but also want to make a career out of it.
Absolutely.
How do you go from like that passion to learning to teaching?
Teaching. As to becoming a personal trainer, or I think if you enjoy fitness, it's a great career, because obviously it's your passion. I think one tip is like making sure you go with an open mind and be wanting to learn, because I think a lot of people have gone to the gym and just think, I want to be a PT, but never considered that I need to learn things to become a personal trainer. But there's so much good stuff out there to learn, and I'm still learning. Like, if your programs look like they did 10 years ago, there's probably something wrong. Like, you should look back on your programs and be like, I've got better ways now. But I think going in, it's finding, I'm not here to spruik Australian Fitness Academy, obviously, but I'm passionate about our course and what we deliver, because I know what's out there, I know what the industry needs. And I think the support we give, we've got a face-to-face campus in Caulfield, so studying face-to-face, we've got our own gym set up, so really good place to study. But online, I think, is a way a lot of people go in these days. So and it's more flexible, it's more available. But our online course, I think when you go in, knowing what you're after is important. And I think at the Australian Fitness Academy, we put a lot of effort into supporting our students, which I think some RTOs don't. And the hard thing with online study, I think, is being committed and just maintaining consistency and not just dropping off. But I think, going in with a learning mindset and having the support there is really important. So if you're looking to get into it, find something that's going to suit your lifestyle. Like if you want to learn and you want to do it face-to-face, go to a face-to-face course. If you work full-time and you're trying to do this new career change, there's online options for you. But you want to make sure it's going to be right for you.
Yeah. Like I was saying before we hit record, I did mine face-to-face and highly recommend it.
Yeah.
You just get a lot more out of it because personal training is face-to-face.
Absolutely, yep.
And like trying to build that connection with people.
And I think that's one thing our face-to-face students, like we've had students who start online and they end up transferring face-to-face and they say face-to-face is amazing. And they love it, they get a lot out of it. I still think there's great opportunity on the online space because not everyone can do face-to-face. But I think if you approach your online course like a face-to-face student, like all our assessments that we create and that I've sort of gone through the creation process with, it's being able to create an assessment that is sort of lifelike and gives you a scenario, not just ticking off questions based on a unit of competency so I can tick you off as your Cert 3 and 4.
Yeah.
I want the assessment to be engaging. So if you read through the content or you think you know the content, great, that's awesome. Have a go at our assessment and don't look at it as us like we're trying to just tick you off. Have a go and actually pretend that case study on the paper is a client in front of you. And we do a lot of role playing and scenarios face-to-face, but it's also applied to the online students as well. So throughout the course, they get the opportunity to apply everything they learn in a face-to-face scenario with friend or family member or at work experience. So I think work experience is another big thing to consider. Did you work experience with your course or was it sort of integrated?
Yeah. The gym I did my course at also did the experience. So.
Yep, cool. And I think some people will look at courses and go, oh, do I have to do work experience? And they're sort of scared to do work experience.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think work experience is the best thing you can do. And even through uni and any study you do, you have to do placement hours and work experience. But that's where you'll learn so much. And I guess I would, with the Australian Fitness Academy, we can obviously assist you to get some more experience and give you ideas. But my number one tip is if you currently go to the gym, that's a great place to start. Find a trainer there that's happy to take you on. Or if there's a gym a style that you want to work at, or there's a training route you want to go down, find someone in that space and approach them and say, hey, I'm doing my Cert 3 and 4. Can you help me out and do my work experience? And I think you'll learn a lot from the work experience you do.
There are a lot of different options now within like fitness, like we're talking about, like strength, running, like you got all types of different gyms now. It's easy to get overwhelmed. So say somebody is into fitness, but they're getting overwhelmed, like all the social media content pumped into their face, all that sort of stuff. They don't know what avenue they should go down. What do you say to, like, whether they're just trying to improve their health and fitness or create a career? Like, how do you silence that noise?
I think it's really, really hard these days. Obviously, if you're looking to be a personal trainer, say you're starting with the Australian Fitness Academy, obviously we say use our resources. But I think it's I use a lot of content for the stuff I run, webinars and things there, live webinars, based on, well, what have you seen on social media? And ask the question. I think being critical is important. So that's probably what I would say is don't just take everything you see online as gospel. If you see someone doing an exercise, ask, why would I do that exercise? And is it the safest way to do that exercise? And why is it beneficial, if it's beneficial?
I think asking why is a good way to go, because there's no right or wrong way to do things, but like, why are they doing it? And I find like a lot of people influencing or trying to get people on their methodology. Like, why are they trying to do it? So, I think there's so much out there and all you'll see is a snapshot. And if you think, I'm going to put that crazy exercise in someone's program, but you don't know why it was in, like, what its point is, it's not going to be the end difference, and it's probably not going to be at the benefit of your client. And again, like with everything out there, there's a lot of education out there. Like, so there's more education than ever, like more information.
Absolutely.
And it's easy to get now.
Yep.
Like, it's never been easy to get information on how to be healthy and fit.
Yep.
But yet health issues, like unhealthy, like heart attacks, heart issues are rising just as much as information is rising.
Yep.
So what's the disconnect there, and how can we connect people with the right information and get them healthier?
Yeah, I think that's a really cool question, because I'm passionate about health and fitness, and when I look at the stats of obesity and things, it's like, why is this going the wrong direction? And years ago, there was a push towards a lot more like PTs, and there was a lot of funding for Cert III and IV in fitness, so lots of PTs. I don't know if it's eventuated exactly how the government thought it would, but I think there's good information out there. I think sometimes even Instagram and social media almost make fitness look harder than it needs to be, or they put this big image out there and it's like, you need to do this, you need to be up at 5 a.m. or you need to be in the gym 2 hours a day, when it's really not like that. There's so many options to make health and fitness fit people's lifestyle, which I think is why it's important as a PT, and what I like to teach students as they go through is there's lots of different ways to apply it. And I think that's why having a good understanding of programming principles and things is important, because you can't just go, I saw this program online, I need everybody to do a 5-day split in the gym, or they need to be running 4 times a week. If someone can only train 2 days a week for an hour, how are you going to structure their program? You have to be flexible and have the knowledge about how and why you do things. That doesn't answer the question in terms of how do people get fitness.
If we going back to the general public, how do you get them more? Again, it probably comes back to that first question. How do you get them more excited about
fitness
and want to learn more to improve their health?
I think there's so much out there. I think, obviously, at some point, I think money comes into it, and there's great information, and PTs provide a great service to get people fitter. But I think clients potentially struggle to fit into their time of day. So looking at how important it is, and more education about, you only need 30 minutes a day or an hour a day, if that, to get some level of fitness benefit. But I think you'd have to change a lot of structure around membership fees, all these sort of things that can turn people off getting the right information and applying it well to the gym.
So you spoke about goals before.
Yep.
How important are goals, and how should people thinking about them?
I think goals are very important, whether it's where you want to get your career or where you want to get in fitness. I think it gives you a solid point to aim towards if you do have struggle to keep consistent. And I think consistency is a really big key to anybody getting fitter or healthier. But realistic goals. So SMART is obviously a common acronym, the SMART, which I think there's pros and cons to lots of different goal setting methods, but I think making them realistic, and generally I find process goals are better than sort of outcome goals. So rather than saying, okay, I want to run 10 kilometres in 6 months, well, what does that like? I think that's where knowledge and personal training instructor can help say, okay, well, obviously you want to run 10K, but what are the steps to actually do that? How many times do I need to run a week? How fast should I be running? How fast should I be running? All these sort of things are better to focus on. So you should be focusing on what you're doing every day, not necessarily focusing too much on the outcome goal.
I like that. I like that a lot. How would that fit into, say, progressing a career?
Yeah, I think a similar like if my goal was to become a personal trainer, like your first step is obviously you have to get qualified. So, okay, I need to get qualified. But I think the first step in find a course that suits you, obviously, whether it's face-to-face or online, and it's going to give you the support you need. But then if you're studying, it's about, okay, I need my Cert III IV. It's about setting up the week. So what process do I need to take to actually get my certificate? I signed up the course, that's great, but the work doesn't do itself. So it comes down to weekly habits, I think, no matter which way you play it. It's like, okay, setting yourself a schedule, I'm going to study on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays for an hour each, and then sticking to that schedule. And if you stick to that schedule for 6 months, all of a sudden you've got your certificate. And then you can break down the next goal. Okay, I've got to get a job, or I want to start getting clients. And you find a job, and then you work out, well, what do I need to do? I apply for some applications, find a gym, start building a client base, and then you sort of break down the processes though. So I think it's important to have a weekly structure to get anywhere, is my sort of
I like that. Do you use a journal? Like, how do you actually do that? Do you write it out? Do you have it online?
I think everyone's different. A lot of people like journals and diaries and things like that. Some people have like a checklist, and they'll just stick it on their fridge or the calendar. It's like, did I get up at 6 a.m. and do a workout? Tick that box. Did I meal prep this week? Tick that box. Did I go to bed at 9:30? Tick that box. And you end up just ticking these boxes at the end of the week, and all of a sudden, if you tick all the boxes, well, it's a pretty successful week, and you're probably well on your way to getting towards your goal. And I think that makes it really clear. So if you do have a goal in 3 months' time and you didn't quite make it, you can look back and go, what steps did I take? What could I adjust? And then go again.
Love that. Love that. What does your training look like at the moment?
At the moment, it's funny because everyone, like, as much as I say that's my goal or have a goal, I don't have a great goal. And I think that's why training sometimes stagnates, and it happens for everybody. Currently, I probably have 4 sessions, so upper lower split in the gym, and probably 2 or 3 runs a week, general healthy fitness, but probably a balance between cardiovascular and gym. Again, I play tennis once a week too, so my general goals are around just staying active and keeping healthy, so I can keep playing sport and doing activity things. But yeah, general training, general hypertrophy, boring training, I would say.
But it's boring it works, doesn't it?
It is. That's the thing. It's boring that works. And I think that's what making that exciting is why it's important. And I'll definitely go through periods where I've probably just come off the back of a period where I wrote myself. I'm terrible with writing myself programs. I don't know about you, but I'll write a program and I'll stick to it for maybe a week, and then I'll change my mind and want to try something else, or it'll just flip flop.
I do write for myself.
Yep.
But I have a community now, like the True Form community.
Yep.
They follow the same program.
Yeah, cool.
So it almost keeps me accountable because we're all in it together.
Yep, I like it.
Because I'm terrible as well. Like I just love going to the gym and just lifting stuff.
Yep.
But then you end up like favouring some muscle groups and
you
get imbalances, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so that's what I sort of did. Probably I've just come off the back of like a 4-week sort of block where I wrote my new block. I was like, I'm going to stick to this. And I did for 4 weeks, so I changed it up. Like usually I'll just get in, I'll just do bench press, seated row, and a lot of compound lifts. But I changed like incline chest press, lat pull down. So I sort of switched up the exercises, and it was good fun sort of start again and do some new exercises, because you end up seeing some progression and you can sort of track it. And I generally don't track a lot of my weights. I'll go in on the day and I'll sort of have an idea if I want to do sets of 5 or sets of 8 or something like that, but I never sort of keep track and try and better it.
Yeah, I think that's something I talk about with one of the other coaches in the gym I work at.
Yep.
Like, we both sort of talk about how we just don't track anymore. Because at a certain point, like, what are you tracking?
Yeah. Well, I think that if you don't have a really specific goal of like, I want my bench press to go up, or I'm trying to improve my strength in a certain lift, you do sort of stagnate and go, well, it doesn't really matter. As long as we sort of understand that as long as I go in and I do something and I'm closer, I get the stimulus, I'm going to get the results, and I'm going to maintain my fitness, which I think is absolutely fine. But I think that's why if you do have a goal, if you do set yourself an 8-week goal or 12-week goal, it would probably hold you more accountable. So if you do want to do something, whether it's a 10K run or you switch it up and you go, well, my mate's just bench pressing 5 times more than me now, like I'm going to catch up, set myself a goal, I can plan the process to get to that, and I'll stick to that for 4 weeks. But there's nothing wrong with saying, as long as you're consistent, I think it's fine. But if we talk about PTs and clients, I think they need that goal to start with so they can see themselves progressing, because I think that's quite motivating.
Is there a difference, or what's the difference between a personal trainer and a coach?
That's a great question. I don't know if there's any exact definition difference. I'm aware of. I think personal trainers can be coaches, and coaches are probably personal trainers. I think people will probably describe themselves as either, depending on what they want to do. But I'm not sure. Have you got?
Yeah,
what would you classify yourself as?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'd maybe say coach, because again, when I get a new client, my main focus isn't really the workout. It's sort of trying to coach them through healthier habits.
Yep.
And we're trying to create habits rather than a workout.
Yep.
Like, yes, definitely. Like
100%.
You need to make a good use of that time in the gym. So you want it to be useful and a good program.
Yep.
but that isn't the focus. So is that just a PT, but then is the coaching side of it?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion on words, because I think potentially the definition has just changed over time. Like a PT should probably be a coach. And I think they probably are without knowing, but I think that's the coach gives it more of a holistic sort of view. It's like, I'm your personal trainer, but I'm coaching you to live a healthier life. And I think if you are just, and I don't think any PT classifies themselves as just a PT, but that would assume that you're just in the gym. I'll train you for 30, 45 minutes, and then I'll see you in a week's time. And that would be potentially, if we're talking about definitions, maybe the PT. But I think as a personal trainer, you should have a holistic view of what they're doing to keep them moving forward towards a goal. Is
that something you try and teach? Like that, I guess, that separation from just here's a workout, but over here where you're coaching as such, but here's what you should be doing with your whole life, basically.
Yeah, I guess it's actually a really good point, because I don't think I've ever taught it like that. Like, this is the gym. I think we teach it more as, we don't really talk about, like, we talk about, obviously they're going to be a personal trainer. We don't really talk about coach. A coach is sort of a different term, but as a personal trainer, we teach them obviously that yes, what they do in the gym is important for that 45 minutes, and you have to know what you're doing to get the best out of it. But realistically, there's nutrition in the course, there's recovery stuff in the course, it's how they manage their recovery, what their overall program looks like, sleep, definitely all plays a part. So yeah, within the structure of their course, they pick up the idea that, well, there's a lot more to becoming healthier. And I think that's important for them to pick up in education, because you could have a client who comes to the gym twice a week, every week consistently, but if there's stuff going on outside the gym that you're not aware of, or you never ask the question about goals or life outside the gym, and they're not seeing results, you don't know why. And I think that's important, because there's lots of stuff that's going to affect results.
100% agree. That's, yeah. So I like asking coaches this question, or PTs, however you want to look at it. Somebody wants to get in health fitness. They can only focus on one thing: sleep, nutrition, or exercise.
Sleep, nutrition, or exercise.
And why?
Oh, that's tough. I think sleep is super important. It's the answer is I answer too many questions with "it depends," and it's a terrible answer. But it's literally every question. It's fun. That's why I enjoy teaching and face-to-face classes and live webinars and things, because you get so many questions from students, and I love flipping them back and saying, well, what do you think? How would you approach it? And then just ideas back and forwards and concepts grow. I think sleep would be probably number one, but if someone, you really have to ask a lot of questions before I put which one is most important, because I guarantee you, for one client it might be sleep, for one client it might be nutrition, for one client it could be exercise.
What would be, I'll reframe it then, what would be the easiest way to build good habits? Like, would you use exercise to build good habits, or would you use food to build good habits first, or sleep?
I think a good place to start, I think, would be sleep, because I think it's good to attack probably the easiest. If I'm creating new habits, let's start with the simplest habits I can integrate first. And most people, and been in this make-believe client, can change habits on sleep relatively easily or quickly without a lot of skill or lifestyle change. So say it's the gym, they probably need to learn how to train. So that's a bit of a barrier. Nutrition, huge barriers depending on food availability. Do they know how to cook? Do they know how to prepare food? All completely overhaul their lifestyle change. But sleep is one thing that you could teach them a few things, and they could just, tomorrow, they could start to implement these things. So I would start with sleep, given it's probably the simplest one to do.
True. And we sleep anyway.
And you're going to have to sleep anyway. Yeah. So create some new habits around improving sleep. If you do that for 2 weeks and you got that nailed, or 3 or 4 weeks, move on to the next building block.
So what are some simple habits for sleep?
Ooh, good question. Sleep, it's the background in athlete development is massive on sleep, and they're huge in the importance of it, both from a recovery standpoint and like a match preparation standpoint. I think being consistent with times is probably the number one thing you can do. So, and it's not easy for everyone. If you're a shift worker or things like that, it's completely different ball game. But I think for most of the population, if you can get a consistent bedtime and a consistent morning time, that is your number one thing you would start to do. And then I like to sort of would build habits around that. So like 1 hour before bed, this is what you do, whether it's a nice hot shower, read a book, go to sleep. So you build sort of good sleep hygiene is a term I like to use.
Very good. Love that. And yeah, 100% agree. Like that.
Yep.
The consistency is a big thing.
Yeah. So if you're looking to get more, which potentially more sleep, or you want 7 to 8 hours sleep, work out what time you have to get up and go back 7 to 8 hours, probably a little bit more, just to allow yourself time to fall asleep. And then that's bedtime. And then what are you doing 45 minutes to an hour before that to wind down, hop into bed, and just create one simple routine you can do every single day?
I'm going to have to change my mind, because previously when I've asked this question, I've always said exercise.
Yeah, okay.
Because it gives you almost that instant feedback.
I do. Exercise is probably my next one, because I think you do sleep, unless you're well off the deep end of having terrible sleep, you'll see improvements, but you might not notice drastic improvements straight away. If you're not sleeping well, or you don't have good energy in the morning, getting consistent sleep routine and good sleep hygiene will improve. But yes, I definitely see your point.
Yeah, like you can get somebody to exercise and they start sweating, or they get a pump and they're like, "Oh, this is working already."
And it feels
it's
real
like,
good.
it's not working, but they feel like it is.
Yep.
Because you get that feedback.
And I think
away.
that's like I said before, that feedback and that progress is just like, oh, this is cool. Yeah. So you flip, you reckon? Sleep first, maybe.
Last couple of coaches, physios, all that sort of stuff I've had on the show have all said sleep. So I'm going to have to start drilling my clients to sleep a little bit more rather than...
That's the thing. I don't know if it's necessarily the first one, depending on the client. And in a gym setting, like they're not going to come in for their first and say, okay, now we're just going to sit down for 30 minutes and talk about sleep, because that's not how it's going to roll. But I think sleep is it's a low-hanging fruit that I think they can improve on first in terms of creating habits.
Definitely. So you basically got a huge audience, like through the education that you work for.
Yep.
What would, if you had all the students in person, online, in the one room, and you could sit them down and say, hey, listen, this is what you got to do.
Yep.
What would you talk about? What would the topic be?
Oh, I love programming, like exercise resistance programming. I'm big on cardiovascular programming too. I think that's something that we can get to like eventually, because I think cardiovascular fitness is huge in terms of health and cardiovascular health. But I think there's more we can do to interest clients in terms of just getting them on a treadmill and running and creating more engaging running sessions, whether it's intervals and tailored to fitness levels and how fast they should be running and how far. I think there's lots of cool stuff you can do. And PTs or coaches are generally looked at to be in the gym, which is a good space. But what can we deliver our clients cardiovascular-wise outside of saying go on a treadmill or go on a bike and do some intervals? I think cardiovascular training is really cool.
100% agree. Like the heart is the most important muscle in the body.
And you can definitely jump online and find good running programs like Cash to 5K and these sort of things for beginners. But I think tailored running programs is something that people probably could get more exposure to. But in terms of if I had every single student in a room, what could I talk about? I'd probably talk about resistance programming, and probably less is more is probably the number one thing I would sort of try get across to the audience. I think it's actually I love seeing other people's programs and programs they bring in, or I see programs that students will send in, or previous students will send in, hey, this PT, check out this program. What do you think of this program? And it's really cool because I never knock any programs. Like, I think there's so much variety that should be applied to programming. That's great in that circumstance. But have you thought about this, or does it apply to you? But I think probably the number one thing in the industry that is not necessarily wrong, but could change, is people doing so much, particularly resistance training volume that potentially they don't need. That makes recovery and sort of progress potentially slower than it would be if they did a little bit less. What about you? If you had a room full of people ready to listen, what would you go with?
I'd probably go like more the mindset.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because again, my big thing at the moment is just trying to get that connection between the information and people wanting to learn and implementing.
Yep.
Because you said it's so simple.
It's not necessarily complicated.
It's a simple things that work, but for some reason, like you said, it's just overcomplicated. Like there's how many studies done on diabetes?
Yep.
And like, do we still need all those? Like, there's some good breakthroughs, but like the basic things are nutrition, exercise, living a little bit healthier. So why are we missing all that and going towards? So yeah, I don't know what I'd say, but I'd probably. But I love programming as well.
Yep.
Like, I love it. Like, I go and buy so many different programs.
Yeah.
Online,
Yep.
Again, just
it's fun to see. Yeah.
To like when you see a big influencer and they've just released a program, I'll buy it.
Yep.
Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's going to be the best program ever, and there never is a best program ever. But like how they structure it, how like what's their warm up, like how do they actually deliver it as well? Yeah, is a big thing, because if it's hard to, if you open it up a PDF on your phone and you can't read it, and it's like that sort of stuff as well. Yeah, people just forget about it and don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, yep. So how do you give programs to your clients? Yep. How do you go about that? It's such a big industry. Like I've done, and students always ask, like they're getting in this industry now that 15, 20 years ago, it's like you put in a program and you've got there's a big filing cabinet in the gym and you go through the letters and you find your client's program and you pull it out. Yeah. It's not like that these days. No. So some gyms have online program setups. Have you got your own? A lot of people use like Excel or Google Sheets.
So I used to use True Coach.
Yep.
That was good.
Yep.
I've switched over to Team Builder.
Yeah,
I think Team Builder is probably the best one I've used.
Yep.
And seen through all of them.
Yep.
Like, if somebody could create an app that was perfect for delivering nutrition, sleep tips, workouts, it would kill it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very hard to do.
Yeah.
So, but to deliver a program, I think Team Builder is the best.
Yep.
Because you can give it to teams or individuals.
Yes, yep.
And there's a bit of a community, like a feed sort of there as well, which keeps everybody a little bit more active. Yep. I think, like, again, community and connection is quite important.
Absolutely.
And then at the gym I work at, they use Techno Gym.
Yep.
Their software.
Oh, yep.
That's good, but I still think Team Builder's better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. We use Team Builder at Carlton for all the athlete programs and a lot of other. I've trained Heroics, another big one that PTs
I've used that
use.
before.
Yep.
That was good, but again, Team Builder just seems to be super. It's just, I guess, that learning curve. Like once you learn a system,
exactly,
it's
that's hard.
Use.
If you find a system interface that you click with and your clients use, go with that. I think is good.
So when it comes to programming, how should people think about? I guess let's start with an individual workout, like warm up. Like what should people think about?
I think knowing. I think that's why I think PTs are probably underutilized in the fitness space, or people might not see the benefit of a PT as much as I think they should. I don't know whether that's social media or why they think I should use a PT, but if your PT will guide you on obviously a program, but how to exercise. I think if you go and download a program, for example, and expect to get good results if you've never been to the gym before, I think it's very hard to do. If you've never learned to train, technique's obviously important for safety reasons, but if you don't know how hard you should be pushing, like I see people at the gym, they'll do a set of 15 reps, rest for 30 seconds, and then do 2 more sets, resting for 30 seconds, and they're done. And it's like, what? That's not really going to do a whole lot. There's no intensity behind it. And I think if you don't understand the concepts, which they're not meant to, they're general public, the PTs are there to instruct and give that information to them. So in terms of a program, there's so much out there. I think finding one from a reputable source or someone or from a personal trainer in a gym is important, rather than getting a general one and expecting to be able to implement it yourself without any background knowledge or learning.
Yeah, it's very hard to, again, like I was saying before, like that influencer releasing a program, you don't know their intent behind it.
Exactly, yep.
And like, at the end of the day, they could be on all sorts of enhancements, which is going to help them get through the program, or, if they did that program to get their results.
Yep. Yeah, I think another one I see a lot of is like body weight exercises and body weight programs, and you'll see people on Instagram and things doing these exercises and promoting like body weight exercises, and people think that they'll do those body weight exercises and look like the person training. And body weight exercises are great, and I think there's good progressions from them. And obviously, to learn to squat, to do bench press, you've got to learn to do push-ups and body weight squats. I think and split squats and things are great tools and a learning ability. But at some point, potentially, you're going to have to lift heavy weights to stimulate muscle growth and get results. You can't just go from doing 10 reps of body weight squats to 20 to 30 to 40 and just do body weight squats. Like, I think resistance, and it's changed. Resistance training is getting a lot more mainstream than it used to be, which is really, really good, I think, for population health, like muscle mass and losing muscle as you age. I think everyone's sort of seeing benefits of health and fitness. Probably just needs to be more readily available.
Yeah, it's like Pilates, reformer Pilates, great.
Yep.
Useful, really good.
Yep.
But then it just sucks when I see certain models doing it that are got a lot of muscle mass doing Pilates and say they've done the Pilates to get that results.
Yep.
And people just believe them and eat it up.
Yep.
So it's just that coming back to ask you question why.
Why? Yeah. Why are you doing it? And yeah, it's fair enough. People don't know. I think that's why the social media is so flooded these days. People just go, well, they've got to listen to something. So where you get your information is obviously important.
So back to the room full of people.
Yep.
You would want to talk about programming.
Yep.
But what aspect of programming gets you fired up the most?
I think I enjoy. The thing I enjoy about programming is just that there's so many ways to do it. I think with a background in athlete development, periodization is something I'm super interested in. I love looking at different program structures. Do I do 4-week blocks? Do I do deloads? Do I do 6-week blocks? Undulating, daily undulating, all sorts of different models of periodization I think there's so many different ways to program, which is why I love it. There's no right answer. There's lots of different options. So just giving knowledge on my experience in programming and how I apply the principles, I think I enjoy a lot, because I see so many programs out there that just don't make sense. Not necessarily like there's bad programs, but they just don't relate to the principles of exercise prescription. Okay. Whether it's too much volume on certain muscle groups, and it's just like, well, it's a 2.5 hour workout. It's like no one's recovering from that optimally. It's just not going to work. So I could go all day on why would you do this many reps versus this many reps, rest period, what's the best rest period, how many exercises in a session, exercise order I think is really cool. All the different elements of building a program together I think is interesting.
So the too much volume.
Yep.
Like you said, less is more.
Yep.
Talk more on that, because I think that is a big issue at the moment, because same thing, working at a public gym, I just see people in there for hours.
Yep.
I'm like I'm almost at the end of my shift. I'm like, you're still here?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah. So, and I go into a gym and I do my session, and then I finished like 3 exercises and there's still a person on the same piece of equipment that I was, and I'm almost done. So I think understanding muscle groups and what exercise work, what muscle groups is the foundation of that. But then understanding that I don't need to do 3 sets of dumbbell bicep curls into 3 sets of preacher curls into 3 sets of cable curls or 3 sets of dumbbell hammer curls is probably the mistake I see the most, in whether it's people just at the gym without a PT or sometimes programs that are written for people. I think there's a limit to how many sets. It's probably I think about six sets probably maximum per muscle group per session.
Okay.
Is what a rough number would be my sort of maximum. You can definitely do less than that, but if people are doing more than 6 sets per muscle group per session, they're probably overdoing it and not going to recover. But I think multiple exercises for the same muscle, if it's an isolation exercise especially, is just not necessary.
Yeah, and I've had that discussion before with people in the gym. They're like, because I'm a big fan of like full body.
Yep, cool.
Rather than the split.
Yep.
Again, depending on the circumstance.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I've had some guys say like, but I just get more out of it if I do this tricep and then that tricep, and I'm like, so how would you go explaining that, 5 exercises on the tricep is just as good as one?
It's very hard, and I think that's why probably it comes back to that what I said at the start, is where for people coming into wanting to study personal training, wanting to be a personal trainer, come in with a learning mindset. I see thousands of students come in online and hundreds face-to-face that come in. I see really good ones that are like ambitious to learn. They ask questions, they say why, and I can obviously teach them things, but they take it on board. Whereas you get some people, both general public and students, who come in and go, nah, that's not what I've done. That's not what I've done. I got results like this. I do 3 exercises per muscle group. I can do bicep curls all day. That's just the way I do it. And they just don't listen. So I think it can be hard. If people are generally resistant to change, potentially, especially if they've seen it online and they've seen all these different bicep, like some training program they've been doing and they've got results or something, I think you have to be careful with just going straight opposite to them and butting heads. I think sometimes trying to weasel them down or just give an alternate opinion and then let them decide, or even provide an alternate resource of information. Say, that's cool, this is how I do it, based on this, have a read of this, is a really cool way to get them to sort of open their mind a little bit. But it's not easy.
No, I like that.
It's not easy.
That's good. And you said exercise, where am I going for that? Exercise, like what exercise you do first?
Exercise
like
order, yep.
Order.
Yep.
Why does that matter?
I think it's a massive, it plays a big role in the outcome of a program. Not a big role, but it will have an impact on what you get out of it. And I think generally people should be doing large compound movements before isolation movements. Let's say if I did a leg extension before I do my back squats, I'm just going to fatigue my quads. I'm not going to be able to back squat optimally. So instead of back squatting 50 kilos, I'm back squatting 30 kilos. So I just limit the stimulus I'm going to get on the bigger movements. So I think there's definitely, it's important to consider exercise order. But I think there's so many instances and circumstances that can vary, just because that's the golden rule, is large movements for small movements, large muscle groups for small muscle groups. There's definitely grey areas, and if someone's needs to, whether it's their quads is their absolute focus and that's their main goal, work your quads first. Anything that works first in the training program is probably gonna be where you want your most important exercise, potentially most complex as well. But there's a lot of I think there's so much room for variation in terms of exercise order, which is why it's sort of seems straightforward when you initially teach it to students, but the more they delve into it and ask questions, it's like, well, you said you should do large muscle groups first, so your legs should go before your bench press because they're bigger muscle groups. But then if my main goal is to work bench press, well, my bench press should go first in the workout and not my legs. So there's a lot of nuance, and I think applying it to individuals is really cool.
So basically, whatever you do first, that's where most of your energy goes, and your body will adapt to that first thing more than the rest of it, essentially. Yeah,
it's sort of, I relate it more to fatigue. So as soon as I start to fatigue, I'm going to get less and less, I guess, muscle activation and stimulus down the road, which it's not by any means a huge drop, but you're going to probably get more out of your initial exercises than your later ones, which is, especially if you do large compound ones the whole way through. That's why it's good to leave isolation to the end, because they don't take as much effort.
True.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does mobility fit into that?
Oh, I love mobility. I think that's something I probably got into that after all the exercise science degree, and you get out into the real world, you're like, oh, people can't move. And you sort of, through sport and your general training, you're sort of young, you don't even think about it. But then you get any other client that hasn't really done a lot of movement, you're like, where do we start here? So mobility is really cool. I think mobility should be more of a daily habit, potentially, than necessarily having to fit in an exercise program.
Before we go further, what's your definition of mobility and flexibility?
Mobility, I would say, is more about strength through movement a little bit, like being able to move, whether it's through a range of motion, under a little bit of load, or sort of being able to move, whereas flexibility is more just how far can I stretch a little bit. So mobility has a little bit more movement involved than, say, can I stretch?
I find a lot of people just get those mixed up.
I think they sort of probably used interchangeably in the industry a little bit. I probably just refer to everything as mobility now. I sort of go away from flexibility training. Well, I wouldn't really talk about becoming more flexible, sort of becoming more mobile. I think, joint.
So how does that fit into the daily routine?
Oh, I think rather than sort of, I think it's something you can, really easy to prescribe clients. Again, we talk about habits and getting consistency to get results. I think it's something that you can teach them, whether it's in their warm-up or their cool-down. You can teach them a few different mobilities that drills and say, hey, you can do this for 5 minutes every session. It's good. We're going to put in the warm-up and the cool-down to help recovery, but you can do this 30-minute mobility session. Maybe it's before bed. Maybe it's in your bedtime routine, and it helps you wind down. Or you get up early, you have a shower, do mobility, eat breakfast before you go to work. And I think it's something you can do daily or every second day, just to sort of get more mobile or maintain sort of mobility.
Yeah. A big term now, I don't know if you've seen it, but mobility snacking.
I haven't heard that term. That's cool.
Yeah, so snacking on exercises.
Yep.
You could insert any sort of mobility,
Yep.
animal flow, stretch, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Just snacking on those during the day.
Yep.
It goes a long way.
Absolutely. I ran a webinar just on a mobility sequence. I think it's something that sort of gets glossed over potentially in a lot of education and things, because it's not in the grand scheme of things with people's goals, it's probably not the be all and end all, but I think it's such an important part that you sort of forget about it until you get a client. They're like, oh no, I have to really get them moving more. And it's not a quick process either, getting more mobile. So you can sort of create these cool little mobility snacks. I like that. I'm going to use that. Mobility snacks, it only takes 10 minutes. And you can just get that in. You could do it once a day, twice a day. Really cool.
So let's talk about general public.
Yep.
Exercise. We've spoken about how people aren't we love the gym.
Yeah.
We love the workout.
Yep.
But the 10,000 steps, all that sort of stuff. What's simple things that just general public can do just to live a healthier life?
I think learning to train, while it is not simple, should be more of the go-to. I think you don't need to. I think it's shifting now, but people used to think, oh, you only need to go to the gym if you want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But it's really that's not the case. I don't know why 100% of the population don't have a gym membership, or access to a gym or a home gym or whatever it is. I think, you can almost look at even high school in PE. It's all sport based, and you learn to do different sports. And there's bits and pieces. And these days, I think some schools will have a gym component. But realistically, I didn't really go to the gym until I was probably 18, 16, 17, probably 17 or 18. And I was like, I want to get into exercise science. And then I sort of start doing it through uni, but it's not really pushed young.
No, it's definitely something that, like I said, I think everybody should be doing.
Yeah.
You go back 100, 200 years, people weren't sitting down. People were moving all day long.
Yep.
But now it's turned around.
Yeah.
We're sitting all day long.
Yep.
It's just something that just needs to happen.
Yeah, I think, and the 10,000 steps, at least it gives it a number, and people go, well, did I do enough steps today, but I think that's probably the bare minimum of fitness. Like, I think like mobility, like you said about mobility, you could start with like exercise, snacking, like you said, and can you do push-ups? Can you do bodyweight squats? Can you do split squats? If you're not at the gym, you should be doing some of these movements regularly, 3 to 4 days a week to have some sort of health.
A lot of people are super busy and will tend to put their health on the back burner. Right? It's like, oh, I'm too busy for this and too busy for that. Again, it comes back to that question of how do we get more people excited in fitness? Like, what would you say to those people? Again, like we're saying, like exercise should be a part of everybody's life. Yeah. Unfortunately, it isn't. Yep. Like, how do we get 100% of the population into a gym and have a gym membership?
It's probably the biggest dilemma, I think. It can come back to the understanding of how little it takes to improve your health and fitness. Like, we'll all go through stages where if we go on holidays, it's like, if we go on holiday, do you find a gym on a holiday? Like, we do, yes. And exactly right. Like, if we go on holiday, fitness professionals, we will generally find a place to go for a run, or we'll go to the gym. We probably won't go to the gym 4 days a week and do your proper split program, or I won't be running, it won't be sort of as consistent as I am if I'm not on holiday. But once or twice a week, I'm going to get a run in, and I'm going to go to the gym maybe once. And it's that little bit that sort of maintains that habit and that health. And I think having the understanding that if you have the skill of being healthy, so you develop the ability to go to the gym and not just walk in and go, I don't know what to do, or I'll just sit on a couple of machines and go through the motions. If you develop the ability to train, it allows you to be more flexible. So, and have blocks of, even if it's 8 weeks, that you go, I can only realistically train once a week for the next 8 weeks. If you have an hour once a week and you go to the gym, that's going to be fine. That's better than nothing, and you're going to be healthy. But unless you have that skill, you've got no option. So you just go, well, I'll just sit on the couch. I've got no time. I'm busy. I'm slogged at work. I can't fit it in. I think can't fit it in is probably the number one excuse.
It is a skill, isn't it? Like, being healthy, being fit, it is a skill that you need to build it. Yeah.
And I think, and I don't have any answers for your questions, because I think that's everyone's trying, a lot of people, that's everything in the industry is what we're trying to do. As personal trainers, we understand that people, we've got the answers. We can help you apply it. It's not complicated, but I think they see a lot of stuff online that thinks I need to look like that, or it is overly complicated. I need to be doing this weird exercise or taking this supplement. It's like, no, it's easy.
It's funny you say that. So at the Fitness Expo, when I was walking around saying, what is fitness? We're surrounded by amazing looking people. A lot of different supplements. But not one person said it was a look.
Yes, there you go.
Not one person related to a physical way somebody looks. It was all about movement and what they enjoy doing. That's crazy.
That's actually really cool to hear, because it's probably not the image people get looking into the fitness industry. It's all the glitz, the glamour, the outfits, I guess, is what social media would have it look like. But realistically, every PT I've taught and worked and seen, and every PT I've worked with, and all my experience is in both strength conditioning and personal training world. It's just like everyone just wants to be healthier for an active life where you can enjoy lots of things. I think the more we can look at PTs as tools to learn from is important for people, so they can go hire a PT knowing they're going to learn a life skill that they can apply. So, and I think it's, hopefully people start to see the investment is worth it. And I think a good message would be, it doesn't matter if you get a PT for, say, 6 months or 6 years, but if you get a PT for 6 months, a good PT will give you the tools that you can implement well. And it's likely that you'll go back to them at different points, because you'll go, 6 months, that's great, I'm going for myself, and then you'll let yourself go for a little bit, that's fine, we all have holidays, and then go, I've got a goal, I'm going to get in shape, I'm going to give that guy a call, he knows what he's doing, bang, back you go, PT, and you give yourself another 6-week block where you're going to actually get results and probably improve your knowledge. But it gives you the skills. I think having the tools to implement regularly is what's going to help people get healthier. But they've just got to sort out the tools, I think, and commit to learning it.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna use that skill.
Yeah.
Learning the skill of being healthy.
Yeah.
It's great. Any final thoughts? Anything else that you want that room full of 1,000 people to hear or listen?
Oh, I think if they're listening and they're current students or they're prospective students that say want to come to AFA and do their Cert 3 and 4 and get a really good education, I think asking questions is a really good tool to get the answers. Like, you might not know the questions now about what you answer, but I think similar to you starting a community for people trying to get healthier, we have a community of students, and we have a wealth of knowledge in our student support team over like 50 years of just experience, people working as owning their own company as personal trainers, online personal trainers, backgrounds in education, and all this knowledge of working in the fitness industry. And that's something our students get to tap into. So number one thing, if you're in a room and you've got someone at the front, and our students have access to this 5 days a week, email, calls, LMS, but messages, but ask questions. Say, hey, how do you start a business? Because that's, I think, one thing that they forget. They're all interested about health and nutrition. That's really good. But unfortunately, in the PT land, a lot of it is owning your own business and running a business, which you would know, which is a completely different skill set too. I'm really good at programming, but I don't necessarily know about running a business. So, but there's so many people you can ask. And that's the biggest thing is which is why I touched on work experience before, which is why I think it's a crucial component of any sort of physical course, is get in. That person who's your work experience manager or whatever it is, they're going to have a lot of answers for you, and you're going to be ask them questions. Ask everybody you meet questions, because once you get into it, it's lots of fun.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because we spoke about who I did my personal training course with before, and I did the same thing. I was so excited. I learned all this stuff. I walked out and I was like, how do I even get a client?
Yeah, exactly.
No,
and it's not an uncommon thing. And I think that's why having a community, so we've been in the industry like 30 years. We've been delivering Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. So we've got this huge community and of knowledge, and being able to come back and say, well, I'm a bit stuck in my career, or I've got these options. What do you think? And we have a lot of face-to-face students come in and they'll say, what do you think about this contract that this gym's just sort of given me? Have you got any advice? And it's a really good, like, I'm glad they've come and asked the question rather than just jump in and go, and then make mistakes and things. We're there to sort of help and assist. So I think room full of people are like, if you get stuck somewhere, you've got us to lean on, and all this knowledge that you can go, can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? So asking questions, I think, is huge.
Yeah, I think that in any situation, that's underrated.
Yeah.
Like, whether you're in the gym, ask questions about exercises, ask coaches, PTs, all that sort of stuff.
Which is like, and I don't stop asking questions, which is why I ask what program you use to deliver programs to your clients, because it's a evolving industry these days, and with the online scape and different gym scape, people are using different programs to get stuff to clients, and that's questions we get a lot. Like, our students, we teach them how to program, but necessarily where they end up is going to be dependent on what they decide to use, and we don't teach in the course what program to use when delivering programs to your client. It's all these different decisions they have to make these days. And
I wanted to finish on the future.
Yep.
A lot is changing in the health and fitness industry. Like we said, there's more information out there, but like the use of AI, I've seen some really good like movement tracking videos where you can track people's movements, and the AI actually tells you the issues going on with their movements, all that sort of stuff. Like AI can program. Sort of. Again, I wouldn't rely on it, everybody, but I definitely still see a professional, because there's a lot of nuances we were talking about with programming and all that sort of stuff, but not necessarily program. But where do you see the future going?
I would hope it goes down the path of people understand. Like, I think AI can be really good because it can help you potentially ask questions and get different information, but I think I don't think AI is going to take over PTs. I think nothing's going to substitute from someone with experience training a client, seeing their movement, adjusting sessions on the fly, whether it's you've done 5 reps, you're meant to do 8, but you're stopping at 5. So that immediate feedback that a personal trainer or coach is able to give you, I think is invaluable. But yeah, I think the gym space, I don't actually know. I think people they sort of more, not boutique, but community gyms and private sort of facilities seem to be popping up more. And I think that's a big route people are going. They're potentially moving away a little bit from sort of your Good Lives and your Anytime Fitness. I think they're still there, and there's still a massive space for them. And I think it's a great thing, but those little community gyms are really cool. So potentially there's a lot of gyms out there, but opening a studio and things you can create, like you're sort of doing on the online space, like a community, is the feel that people are going for. And I think that's really cool, because I think that's what sport gave me when I was younger, and why I enjoyed sport so much, and why you keep doing these things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what those gyms can do, is they give you a bit of a community feel.
Yeah, I think if you are interested in getting into personal training, I think this is the best time to do it.
Yeah.
Yep. I think AI is only going to make the need for personal trainers more.
Yep.
Like that human connection.
Yeah.
I don't think AI will ever be able to, like, maybe in some far off utopia where we've got robots walking around, that sort of shit.
That'd be it,
but yeah, I think in another 10 years, I think personal trainers are going to be way more in demand.
Yeah.
So if you're getting into it now, you've got 10 years to develop your skills and be as good as you possibly can.
Absolutely. Because I think, hopefully, AI makes everything else more efficient. So people potentially either start to have time,
100%,
or they start to realize, I can get work done, but if I'm sitting here all day and I'm not healthy, I'm not going to live as long. So I think longevity and quality of life is going to become massive in the next sort of 10 years.
Yep.
Like you said, so PTs, great time to get into the space.
And good PTs.
Good PTs are important. And I think that's why you should ask why, ask questions, get stuck into whatever course you do, and just learn. Understand who you're learning from, and always question things.
100%. Tom, let's leave it there. Thanks
Sweet.
for coming on.
Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it.